This chapter directly continues from the previous chapter. Please ensure you follow the web series chronologically. All the links will be provided in the description below. Thank you. The House of Kuru, Book 1, Chapter 5. Shantanu and the Goddess Ganga. In the lineage of Dushyanta, O King Janamejaya, a king named Shantanu was born from a king called Pratipa. Pratipa had 3 sons, Devapi, Shantanu, and Bahlika. Devapi became an ascetic and abandoned the throne to his younger brother Shantanu. O king, now let me impart to you the story of Shantanu and the beautiful goddess Ganga, said the royal preceptor Vaishampayana. The great King Shantanu had mastered the scriptures pertaining to virtue, desire, legacy, and salvation. He was an example to all. He ruled justly with all his subjects. Every day the King Shantanu would patrol his vast kingdom with the aid of his charioteer just to ensure everything was in order and that the law of the land was upheld by every citizen. One day, as he was riding his chariot through the banks of the Ganges, he observed a woman of exquisite beauty. Her smile was so enrapturing that even the gods would be mesmerized. The charioteer, who was driving Shantanu, observed the damsel and stopped the chariot and also saw the king. King Shantanu's jaw had dropped and his eyes were wide open in admiration of the charming beauty who stood before him. The being was standing on the bank of the river Ganga. Her eyes sparkled with charisma, her lips red as the color of crimson sky. Her rotund face had small drapes of hair hanging from each side of her face. From her neck to her bosom she was decked with the finest jewels in the land. The king could not help himself. It was as if he was in a trance. He had no idea what he was doing. All he knew was that his legs were moving and he was fast approaching the beauty that stood before him. As soon as he approached her, he fell to his knees and mentioned, "O divine being, your beauty puts angels to shame. Your luster puts the shining stars to shame. Your charisma shames the moon, and your gait shames even the most enrapturing Apsara in the throne room of Indra, the chief of gods. Who are you, O majestic beauty? Please tell me," said the bewildered king. "I am, O king of the Kuru clan, goddess Ganga, and I am the goddess of this river. I was brought forth by the penances of Bhagirath, who performed great austerities to please the god of destruction, Lord Shiva, who, with the prowess of his might, understood and withstood my descent from heaven. I am a free-flowing river goddess," said the goddess. "O divine beauty, you have truly enslaved me with your exquisite gait and grace. Please take me as your husband. I will see to it that you live a life of absolute prosperity, with all the happiness of an empress in my kingdom. I beg you," implored the mighty King Shantanu. Goddess Ganga smiled softly and said, "Mighty king, there are hundreds of men willing to take me as their bride, yet I have turned them all down. Do you wish to know why?" said the goddess. Yes, goddess, please speak so that I shall not dare make such a mistake," said the king. "My king, I want your word that no matter what I do, I will not be questioned. The moment I am questioned for my actions, I will depart your kingdom immediately. No former king was able to give me their word that my actions will hold no accountability," said the divine goddess. The King Shantanu did not even think when he said, "You have my word, O graceful beauty, that I, King Shantanu, will not dare question any action that you perform," swore the king. The goddess smiled once more, and smile filled the king's heart with a warmth that he could not comprehend. The goddess immediately accompanied him in his chariot, and the couple made their way to the kingdom of Hastinapura. As soon as the king arrived at the kingdom, he made arrangements for a wedding and demanded that the best priests in the land be present to solemnize their nuptials. The entire kingdom was in chaos, with wedding planners, priests, fruit and flower vendors running amok by the king's order. The king, however, was still gazing at his beautiful fiancée. His eyes failed to move even an inch from her. The goddess Ganga made herself comfortable on the king's throne, while the king sat speechless. His eyes hesitated to even blink lest he should miss a moment of her beauty. Truly, the goddess Ganga was gorgeous. The citizens would take sneak peeks at the throne room to gaze at the queen who recently occupied the throne. In time, the marriage between the king and the queen was solemnized. The king requested his trophy queen to sit beside him on his chariot and rode all through his vast kingdom. All members of the kingdom rushed out of their houses to catch a glimpse of the king and queen. The king did not take his eyes off his queen throughout the ride, and even the charioteer had difficulty keeping his gaze on the road and the pavements. In time, the king got used to the queen living in the palace. He wondered to himself how foolish were the other kings for refusing her demands. She has not committed a single act of atrocity during her tenure. All she has done is bring great fame to my kingdom and tremendous happiness to my heart, he thought to himself as he sat in his throne room. Hastinapura prospered by the grace of the goddess. Flowers bloomed, rain poured during the seasons, crops grew, and nature thrived under the nature of the goddess. The ministers all agreed upon the arrival of the goddess. Great omens and good had fallen on the kingdom. Wealth was amassed by all the citizens. Trade grew, and the king's joy knew no bounds. Days grew to weeks, which soon grew to years. King Shantanu was in a bliss. He would spend all his time drawing portraits of his beloved queen, addressing her every need and doting on her like a servant. Eventually, the beautiful queen fell pregnant. The king watched over the queen with utmost care during this period and ensured that she had all the necessary requirements met. Within months, the queen, goddess Ganga, delivered a healthy baby boy. And as soon as the news reached the king, his face glowed with pride and joy. He leapt out of his bed and rushed to see his beautiful bride, the goddess Ganga, carrying in his arms fruits, sweets, and various delectables. When he reached her bedchamber, however, she was nowhere to be seen. The good King Shantanu looked everywhere for her and his son. He could not find them anywhere until he peeked outside his castle and observed her walking slowly toward the river Ganges. Curious and amused by the fact that she had recovered from delivery so quickly, he hopped on his chariot and followed her in the distance. The goddess Ganga walked patiently to the river bank, holding the newborn infant, and soon the king caught up with her. He didn't say anything, but just observed her carrying the infant. Soon he noticed that she was dipping the infant into the river. To his horror, he saw that she was drowning the infant. She left the infant underwater, and in time she lifted her arms, and the King Shantanu observed that there was no infant. She had murdered her own son. The king flew out of the chariot and ran towards her when a voice in his head reminded him that he should not question her actions. With tremendous physical restraint on his part, he stood before the goddess Ganga, his face trembling with both fear and anger. Utilizing every will in his body, he let out a nervous smile, and the goddess Ganga smiled back. Her smile was so enchanting and bewitching, he forgot for a moment all about his newborn. As he remembered his oath, he was compelled to not question her actions. He escorted her chariot and his and made their way back to their kingdom. The king was worried. Was the goddess mad? Who would kill their own child? Within months, news reached the king that the queen was once again pregnant. His concerns subsided and thought perhaps she had a very good reason for doing this. Soon enough, the queen gave birth to another boy, and soon enough she took the boy, as soon as the infant was born, to the banks of the river Ganga and drowned it underwater, all under the watchful eye of King Shantanu, who had followed her again. Again he maintained his word as king not to question the goddess Ganga's actions. Time went on, and the goddess gave birth to 5 more children, and on each occasion the queen drowned it in the river Ganges. Finally, an 8th son was born to the couple. This time the king could not hold his tongue. He followed the queen, goddess Ganga, just like before, to the banks of the river Ganges. As soon as she took the infant in her arms, the king leapt out of the chariot. He raced to the banks of the river where she stood. She placed the infant in water, just about to drown him. "Stop, you wretched witch! That is our son! Are you insane?" hollered the king. The goddess Ganga frowned. The king had broken his promise and his word. Now she would have to leave him. "O king, you gave me your word that you would not question my actions. I shall not kill this child, but listen to my story before you judge me," said the bewitching goddess. "Speak," said the king. "Speak, so that I do not feel like a man who accompanied infanticide of 7 children," said the king, softly, with small droplets of tears dripping from his eyelids. "Long ago, my king, in your previous birth, you were a king called Mahabharata. You had performed 100 Ashwamedha yagas and 100 Rajasu yagas. By the prowess of your austerities, you were allowed into the realm of the celestials. When there, you glanced upon me with desire, and I relished under your glance, in the presence of the great god Brahma, the creator. Brahma then decided it is best for both you and me to be born in the world of men, to indulge in our mutual desires," said the goddess Ganga. At this time, there were 8 Vasus. They were celestial beings called Devas, who glanced upon the cow called Nandini, said goddess Ganga. This cow was the sole property of the mighty spiritual giant, the mind-born son of Brahma, the rishi called Vashishta. The cow was of dazzling beauty, and any mortal who drank milk from under her udder immediately obtained immortality. The Devas all sat, gazing at the beautiful cow Nandini, envious of the rishi who held the cow in his pen. One day, when the rishi was out gathering herbs for his fire ceremonies, the wife of the eldest Vasu insisted on stealing the cow. She desperately wanted it. "Oh, please, let us steal this magnificent cow for ourselves. See how beautifully she grazes," said the wife. In time, all 8 Vasus agreed to steal the cow, and the eldest Vasu, named Prabhasa, led the theft. As soon as the cow was stolen, Vashishta, by the prowess of his mystical yogic abilities, understood exactly what happened. He cursed all 8 Vasus to be born on earth as mortals. And as soon as the Vasus heard of the curse, they lamented to the rishi Vashishta and begged him to remove the curse. The rishi refused. A curse, once spoken, must take effect. However, I will allow one of you to endure it fully, and the rest may take only the birth. This is my boon to all of you, said the rishi. As Prabhasa is the eldest and the one who orchestrated the theft, he will be born on earth and lead a long and painful life. The rest of you will be born to the goddess Ganga, who will free you of your mortal coil upon your birth, said Vashishta. So you see, mighty king, all that I did in the heart of serving the great seer, the mighty Brahma Rishi Vashishta. And as you played a key role in this service, you will be rewarded duly in the heavens, said the goddess. I will ensure that this child is brought up with full knowledge of all the scriptures and is fully versed in all the branches of the Veda, said the goddess Ganga, and left the teary-eyed king, taking the little infant with her. King Shantanu stood there with his head hanging low, bewildered at what had just occurred. The entire decade felt like a dream. The goddess's enchanting, bewitching beauty, her charm, her gait, her grace, all gone. He felt empty. There was nothing but the beautiful portraits he drew of the goddess. He resolved to a life of asceticism. He ruled the kingdom like an ascetic. Days passed, and the King Shantanu ruled justly with complete dispassion towards the throne and the title of Emperor of Hastinapura. One day, on his usual route where he patrolled the land, he noticed that there were a number of fishermen who had gathered across the stream. In order to address what the issue was, he approached them. For some reason, there is no water in this stream. There was a large amount of water here, Your Majesty, but since morning there has been no water at all, said one of the fishermen. King Shantanu mounted his steed and rode upstream. To his surprise, he found a large boulder on the mouth of the stream which stopped the water from flowing. He took out his mace and smashed the boulder into several pieces, which immediately allowed the water to flow back in again. However, within a minute, another boulder took its place, and confused, King Shantanu did the same again. He blasted this boulder with the powerful might of his mace, and soon enough, yet another boulder replaced it. Irritated by this chain of events, he went further upstream to investigate and found a young lad with bright big eyes practicing archery, and next to him was a whole pile of boulders, enough to stop a stream. He commanded the youth to stop, but the youth refused, stating he needed to practice his skills. The infuriated king took out his mace, ready to fight, and the youth recognized the king's thirst for battle. He raised his bow and aimed it at the king. It was at this moment a flash of light beamed above the water in the river, and the water rose up to the light and surrounded it. Both the youth and the king stared in awe with the miraculous formation before them, and soon the water dissipated. Instead stood the goddess Ganga. The youth prostrated before her, kneeling, and the King Shantanu was puzzled. The youth spoke, "Speak to me, mother. This warrior is preventing me from practicing my art with the bow. I wish to lay waste to his body. Please permit me to do so." "That shall not be done, my son, for this warrior is none other than your father, the Emperor of Hastinapura, the Lord of the realm, the protector of his people, the mighty King Shantanu," voiced the goddess Ganga. King Shantanu's anger fizzed away at the thought that he was witnessing his own son. The youth tearfully approached his father, bowed low, and apologized. "Dear father, forgive my arrogance. Drenched in ego, I have behaved in a manner not worthy of thy son." Shantanu could no longer hold himself. He ran to his son and embraced him in a hug, so tight the youth had to hold his breath. The goddess Ganga smiled softly. The father and son maintained a long embrace. Finally, Shantanu let go of his son, and the goddess approached the king and said, "He is your son, O king. His name is Devavrata, and he is the last of the 8 children born by me. He has been educated in all the sciences of statecraft by Brihaspati, the preceptor of the Devas. He has been taught the art of war by the mighty warrior sage Parashurama. He has learnt all about the occult from the preceptor of the demons, the sage Shukra, and he has mastered the holy Veda under the wise tutelage of the sage Vasishtha. This son will bring glory and fame to your humble house. Take him to your kingdom and rule with glory," said the goddess, blessing both him and the youth. "Dearest goddess, the past years have felt like lifetimes in your absence. Please, join my son and I and rule this land as my queen, I implore you," begged Shantanu. "My duty as a queen has been dissipated by giving you an heir. My duty to the great seer Vasishtha and the Vasus have also been dissipated. Now, my duty as the river goddess must continue. Go, O king, and discharge your duty as the lord of the realm, but I will not be joining you as my duty as goddess predicates yours," instructed the goddess with a firmness in her voice. Dejected, King Shantanu and his son hopped on the chariot and entered the kingdom of Hastinapura. The king of Hastinapura, Shantanu, proudly announced to the entire kingdom from his throne, "Meet my son from the goddess Ganga, who will take the throne on my death. He is the glorious Devavrata," said the proud King Shantanu, face beaming with pride and grinning from ear to ear. The humble Devavrata bowed with humility before the ministers and the priests within the throne room and sat next to the king. "My great-great-grandfather was of divine birth?" asked Janamejaya. "Ah, but dear student, the tale of the great house of Kuru has only just begun. Divine birth is one of the many fascinating wonders of the great tale of the Kuru lineage. Almost each birth is of divine origin in the house of Kuru. The tale is a play of the great god Mahavishnu. When Mahavishnu incarnates, all gods incarnate with him to get a view of the cosmic play scripted by the great god himself. Listen, my child, as I impart the tale of the great house of Kuru," said the wise royal preceptor Vaishampayana. I hope you liked today's episode of The House of Kuru. If you have not already, please subscribe to this channel and like this video so that you will be notified every time a new video is uploaded. Thank you.